Okay, good evening and welcome to a TST scan tool on a Jeep. Today we'll be using a couple of different scan tools. One, we'll start with the Delphi, and then we will do the launch and the OTC scan tool. And with me,
I'm Pierre, Vice President of TST.
all right, so Pierre, here's what we have.
All right.
This is the scan tool, and after we show you this, we're going to go to the screen. Oop. And we're basically going to select a vehicle. I'm going to go to Vehicle.
And while he's doing that, this is one of the new generation of PC-based, or tablet-based scan tools.
Okay, so I'm going to pick Chrysler. And basically, I'm pressing it on the scan tool. You're seeing it up on the screen.
And we've got this hooked up to, what year is this Jeep?
It's a 2004 Jeep. It's something that comes into your shop.
And we have a power supply on it. We always tell you, you've got to run a power supply on a car if you're going to be leaving the ignition on for a period of time doing diag or coding and programming.
Yeah, we're using the associated battery maintainer, not a regular battery charger.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so this is what comes up. It ID'd the vehicle, the VIN number of the whole bit. We're going to hit yes. And we got powertrain, body, chassis, or DTC help. Let's look at DTC help. This is something I always recommend you do. If you could go and query all the different modules.
And you see if there's big trouble all over the place.
Exactly.
It's good to do a health check or a, quick test, short test, whatever the different manufacturers call it, different things. But the idea is you scan the whole car and look for trouble.
Right. Now, right here we have the engine module's okay, the training's okay, but there's an ABS code. Now, if you just went into engine, you wouldn't have seen that. And here's the other thing. You don't get to sell the customer extra work.
Right. And also, sometimes, if you're looking for one problem, but if there are, say, voltage or network codes throughout the car, you're going to go down the wrong path here. You've got to know that that systemic problem occurs.
Exactly. So it's going through, and this is live, so
Yeah.
the real thing connected to the car. And here we go. It had 10 modules on the vehicle, 1 DTC, and that's it. So we're not going to clear them because we're going to see what the other tools also do. But what we could do is go out. Oop. I want to stop the search.
By the way, we're doing this in front of a camera. Usually you'd have this tablet laying down and it's easier to hit the buttons properly instead of at a funny angle like that.
We gotta kill that. We have to kill that.
Start again.
2, 3, here we go. Hi, my name is Truglia from TST. I'm the president.
And I'm Pierre Respaut, Vice President.
And here's what we're going to do tonight. We have the Delphi scan tool hooked up. So we're going to scan a Jeep and see what the Delphi tool can do. This is a pretty powerful tool. So we're going to do select vehicle. And this is a little tablet if you move in on it. But we're going to show you everything up on the screen after we're done. So I'm going to basically select vehicle, and this is why we want to kind of do it on the screen. And I'm going to hit Chrysler. Now it's going to look for the different protocols on the vehicle. Just like anyone else, there are different protocols.
Yeah, and it'll auto scan till it finds the one that communicates.
Exactly. This is a non-canned vehicle that we're working on. It's a 2004 Jeep. And you should see this all come up as it did here. It told us exactly what's on. Now we're going to go into the system, and we have a choice between powertrain, chassis, body, or DTC. Now the DTC health, this thing is super important. Now on some cars, it's called something different. It could be called health check on a different scan.
Short test, quick test, whatever. I call it the long test. It's never quick or short.
On some scan tools with foreign cars, it's a long test, but they call it short test.
Right. And while it's doing that, I'll just say this is one of the kind of new generation of tablet-based, PC-based scan tools. And just like A lot of our webcasts, we're doing this live. It's just like you in the shop. We'll maybe hit the wrong button once in a while or whatever, but that's part of real life, isn't it?
That is true. Now, one of the things here that if you just stopped at doing the PCM, which most people do, right? They do a quick check.
Right.
I'm going to go in and check for codes. You're only checking one system. This vehicle, I believe, has 10 different modules on it. And if there's a problem, which I think I already seen one go by, yes, 10 modules, one is in ABS. You would be short selling yourself and short selling the customer. You wouldn't find that problem, right, Pierre?
And if the customer then has a light come on later, they're going to think you did something to the car. Or if you document the problem, even though they didn't have a light when they drove it in, at least you're covered.
That is true. So let's get out of this. We'll hit OK. We're going to hit the back button, and it takes us back here. So let's go into powertrain here, and let's look at the engine controller. Notice it came up with engine and transmission. And let's look at the data list, because data is very, very important. So let's see, and again, it's live, it's communicating. Don't think sometimes that the scan tool is slow or whatever. It could be the vehicle itself out
Right.
there.
As a rule, older vehicles are slower to communicate with the scan tool than newer vehicles.
Now, one of the things I like doing first, besides doing the trouble code that we already know, but you see this is pretty neat. For one trip failure, there's no DTCs. We don't want to clear anything. We always like to look at freeze frame. Freeze frame is basically, and notice this has 3 freeze frames on it, but let's see, there's probably nothing in them. Oh, here's one, look at that, see? Sometimes you think there's nothing.
Well, that's freeze frame 1, and now, not every manufacturer does this for every module.
That is correct, and notice this one had, at some point, a low battery, a P0562. It tells us basically the temperature, the barrel, the engine coolant, and probably you could go in and, by the way, change everything to Fahrenheit and probably set up.
Yeah, you can use a Euro, metric or American or US.
Okay, we're not going to play with that now,
No,
but you can see the whole data list here. It's pretty impressive.
So this happened at low battery voltage and the thing wasn't even running. It was probably, the lights were on or something.
And look at all this data. I mean, this is an amazing amount of data that they actually stored in. Okay. Now let's go back, and that was freeze frame 1, right? Let's see if there's anything in freeze frame 2. Same thing, or maybe did I pick freeze frame 2? Let's see 1. So I did 2. I'm going to go to 3 next. So it looks like the only thing that's in there. And then we'll go to most recent.
Right. There's
So
nothing.
there's nothing in 3, so twice the battery had a problem. Now sitting around with this long winter, that's possible.
And it was a very bitter winter here in the Northeast. For anybody who wasn't in the colder parts of the country, you can't appreciate what a tough winter we had.
Right, and lucky you.
And yeah,
And here's carb freeze frame. This is the thing you're looking at for generic OBD2. And that's the information, the same exact thing. So now we're going to go back and we're going to look at after that, I like looking at module information. Now why? Because I want to make sure when I read the VIN, is it the right VIN that's on the car?
if it doesn't match the car, back out of there. Use a different scan tool, whatever. Don't do what you were doing. You can mess things up.
Module information itself. And there is all the information should be correct on this vehicle. So it gives you all that good stuff. Let's go back out. And I'll learn configuration. Let's see what this is. And this gives you, from using a lot of different scan tools, this thing does a pretty nice job, I gotta say, in going in depth with stuff.
Very intuitive.
So it tells
Very
me,
easy.
purge solenoid, NVLD, natural vacuum leak detection, AC. It tells us what's in the vehicle. That's pretty neat.
Right.
And let's go out of here.
And obviously, if you're diagnosing something and you need to access a wiring diagram, you'd really like to know what that as-built list is, at least the equipment that you're dealing with that day.
Let's look at this data list. Wow, look at all the stuff you can do here. Okay, let's look at all data. All the data that's on this engine controller for the PCM hardware.
Right now,
Not necessarily the
we always say this, if you're really homing in on a problem, you don't want to be on all data because it's going to slow down the data transfer.
Now, there's the, Chrysler usually says adaptive trims. Look at this data information here.
So this is everything the computer puts out. It's a good way to quickly scan.
Quite extensive.
A lot of bids there.
Take a look at your scan tool and see if it does some of this. Look at this. That is some big list.
Yeah, it's like 6 pages or 7 pages. Wow. Right?
21 frames, a lot of information. Now let's look at, I don't know what no start. Let's see what no start does. It's going to look at cam and crank sync and all that.
Engine RPM, so you know if you have a crank sensor failure right away?
Yeah, specific stuff. And skim.
Skim, target idle speed, sure.
Right, and skim is your security stuff. So you may have a problem there when a vehicle doesn't start. So you have extensive stuff here. You know, charging, we'll take a quick look there. There's your charging information. Pretty neat. Now let's go and see a couple of more things that it has here. Let's look at mode 6. These people like mode 6. Now you'll see if this basically decodes mode 6. And being by decoding rather than the hexadecimal data, if it's given us other information. So in the background is all the information.
And it looks like it's hex.
It's all hex. So you're going to need to go to the manufacturer's website. And a lot of websites, if you go to NASTF, National Automotive Task Force.org, that's NASTF.org, you can go there and then you can decode what this is. You see this one failed? Something ran last time and failed. Also, we got the monitor status here. And we got
Is everything complete except for the one that's not supported, or a bunch of them not supported?
Yep, so it has oxygen sensor, and it has the CAT and the EVAC. There's 4 live monitors on it, the rest are not supported. So let's get out of there. And let's look at actuator test. Because sometimes you want to see if something works on the vehicle.
And I like to use a scope or a meter to really verify that it's functioning, not just hear it click or, you know, have an idle speed change.
And look at all the stuff here that you can do. You can cut injectors out. You can force the natural vacuum leak detection solenoid. We're going to make something so you can hear it in the background.
Go-to heater and all of that, right?
So it has a lot of information here. And if it had a turbo wastegate solenoid, no turbo on this car. Let's do the AC clutch. You'll have to listen. And this is always something good to do. When you hear something, remember your brain, your eyes, your ears, your nose, your hands are the most important tools you have. So let's say you're not sure your scan tool's communicating. Take something that'll make noise or light up if it's a light or whatever, right? And I'm going to hit start activation.
And there it is. I could hear it. I'm not sure if that shows on the... want me to walk over there so the mic is near it?
So now Pierre's over near it.
There it goes.
You should have heard that clip.
It should have come
on and
through.
off.
Could you hear that there? Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to stop that. So now you know your scan tool actually does that, and that's obviously important test. We should also say that this tool has a J2534 component where you can actually program through the tool. And let me just show you that. Hold on a second here.
But basically you go on the factory website, go to, and there it is. You go to the factory website, you pay your subscription, whatever it is, and you go on and it becomes a factory tool, pass through.
passes right through. Okay?
Now, you have to be careful with any of these. You've got to read, every manufacturer has all kinds of criteria they want you to meet before you do anything serious, like coding and programming.
That is correct. So let's get out of this. Let's see what transmission has. So we're giving you a walk through the tool, and you have data display list.
Well, the filter would be obviously that you would select whatever page you wanted to look at. That's what I was alluding to before. When you're really into a serious diagnostic, you're going to go to that limited list and you're going to pick off the items you want to see. Then the scan tool will update much faster.
And look at the data here. A lot of nice data as well. Look at that. That's pretty impressive data.
A lot of information.
So we'll back out of that. And we'll go one back. And we have,
What's the extended snapshot?
that's when
It's going to be a flight record. It's going to be a flight record type of
Right,
thing.
so
right?
I'm going to do filter. It's a flight recorder.
Right.
If I want to do something here, I can pick if I want RPM, voltage, whatever.
Yeah, see. I was starting to say this before. So usually you'd have this, laying down. Jerry's trying to do it at a funny angle, and it's hard to hit the button right.
But you get the idea.
That's what you do. So you would pick the PID you wanted to record, and you'd go for a driver test or whatever you need to do, and you would have a snapshot of that data.
And here's the functional test. So it has actuator stuff, as you can see there. Okay. Gives us some
Tells you
nice
what the switches,
information.
whether they're open and closed. Now, obviously, you'd have to go back to service information to find out what is supposed to be opened or closed at any one point.
And you can put these solenoids on or off. And it's hard for you to hear, but I actually...
Yeah, you can hear it a little bit. It's hard because it's a tranium, it's buried in there.
And then we got the battery maintaining in the background, but it does work quite well. So... Gotta be careful not to hit the exit button in the back arrow. You gotta read. Okay. So we also have miscellaneous information here.
And by the way, since he said that, we are using these scan tools just like all of us in the industry do. We didn't go read the manual first and bone up on it and look at all this stuff. We just turn it on and let it fly.
It's pretty intuitive. Now this battery disconnect, this is basically resetting your transmission. It's like rebooting it. So if you went in there and it said the key must be on, engine off, I'm just going to cancel it, but it would basically take your learned values and scrub them right out.
Wipes all the adaptations down back to zero.
So let's get out of here. So transmission has all that. And obviously there's a whole bunch more stuff there. We don't want to keep you here too long. Let's look at body, what it'll do in body, then we'll go to chassis. So you have security, you got audio systems. Let's take the occupant.
And you had the restraint, the airbag system too.
So this should give us information on like seat belts and
body modules. Oh, I forgot what.
yeah, see occupant, belt
There you go.
tensioner.
Right, all that stuff.
And this is important when a vehicle's in an accident, you're using this in a body shop, you're going to need to know that information. And remember, you can program from this as well. Let's take a peek here at their security. So if you went in the security system, you had any trouble codes, and here's what you're going to see on the skim, as Chrysler calls it, security. So it has 2 keys programmed to it. That's all they gave us on that.
That's what it came with.
So the data list is not super big on it, but it's pretty good. And then you got passive restraints and the audio system and so on. Let's look at chassis. Remember, we had a code.
ABS.
Right? At ABS. So let's look what this code is.
And by the way, depending on how different vehicles are set up, an ABS code can affect how the engine drivability or how the tranny shifts.
That's right. In fact, some ABS codes could prevent you from being in limited slip, right?
Right.
Traction control.
It may not engage overdrive, or it may have trouble shifting. It may go to some default shifting mode because it has a problem with speed information, for example, out of ABS, or because The ABS is what controls traction control, and that's affecting the way the throttle is actuated. You know, it's just going to let it go to a default value.
Okay, nothing came up on that, which I'm surprised.
Nothing came up on trouble codes?
No, it had CAN information. So here's giving us some information here, wheel speed and all that. But we'll go back and take a look at that code again. Let's see actuator test. Yeah, it has all the stuff for ABS.
You know, actually, I didn't really look to see how long ago that code had set. Maybe it's one of those things where it's way back in freeze frame and it's kind of ignoring it now.
Could be a long time ago.
Right.
Okay, so I'm going to go back in that code,
See what we can get out of it.
read current trouble codes. New feature, by highlighting the DTC on the top of the menu, you can see what's going on there. Okay, but I don't have the DTC. So it didn't have anything on that, but overall, this tool gave us a lot of information. The point I want to bring here is this is a very capable tool of working on many cars. In fact, I used this on a 2014 Cadillac ATS on not that occupant system, the camera radar system. So when you get too close to a car or backs off and all this stuff, this tool was very, very impressive. Also works real well on a Subaru. So certain car lines, certain scan tools work a little better than other ones. We just happened to pick this Jeep. It was the easiest thing that we had around. We were going to do something different before, but this is what we selected. Just like when a car comes into your shop, right? It's the real deal. It did a good job overall.
This had Identifix or something on it too, right?
I think you have a whole bunch of information.
So being PC based, there's a whole bunch of stuff that you can do with this tablet besides just the scan tool features, and seamlessly go from one application to the other.
You got a help button up top. You can do feedback, which is pretty neat. So it has
And you could search the web for information on whatever you're finding at any one point, as long as you have a wireless network in your shop.
So overall, a very capable tool for working on this Jeep. Hopefully you got a few things out of this short video. Hopefully you'll come back and see us soon.
So now we're going to switch to the next one, right?
Good evening. I'm G. Truglia, the president of TST.
And I'm Pierre Respaut, the vice president of TST.
And what we have tonight is the OTC Encore with the latest update on a 2004 Jeep Liberty. So we're going to see scanning with this tool what it does. And here we go. And unfortunately, we couldn't figure out how it goes to a screen. It may be a way, but we're doing this real quick. So we're going to do select a vehicle. We're going to do auto ID. So auto ID, and again, this is live. And it comes up with the Jeep Liberty. There we go. I click on it. And now it's going to come up with maintenance test, engine, global OBD2, and a whole bunch of information. Now, one of the things I like doing is going into generic OBD2 first. If a vehicle comes in your shop with a drivability problem, the best place to go is the generic OBD2. Because
and the reason for that is in generic OBD2, there are no substituted values. You're getting the real information. In the factory side, they can substitute values when they see a problem with a sensor or a system, and you may not have the actual real story.
Very good, Peter. You took the words right out of my mouth. That is absolutely true. So let's start with generic OBD2. Let's see how fast it queries this. This is based off, I think, an Android. Yes, it's an Android-based tablet. And it does a pretty damn good job. So right now it's going to go through. It's going to look here, and we see that we got monitor description. So we can see what monitors are ready and supported. This has 1, 2, 3, It has evap is ready, oxygen sensor heater, and cat. Okay, they're the ready ones. We'll check freeze frame, because that's always a good thing to do, even though you may not have DTCs. It's a good idea to check here.
And sometimes your freeze frame is a hint at something that hasn't really coded up. Not all manufacturers do it. I think legally they don't have to until they have a code, right?
That's correct.
But they can. They can have a freeze frame, and that might give you an insight into something that's not quite fully broken yet.
So now it's querying and seeing if there's anything there.
And by the way, this is, we're doing this just like in your shop, so you have to wait for it to query the car, and newer vehicles tend to be much faster. This is not the Scan Tools' fault. Newer vehicles are faster, have faster computers than the older ones.
Now, again, this is taking a little longer than you would like or I would like, but it's querying, see if there's any information in there.
And there we are.
We may see if we can get out of that.
Getting tired of waiting. So, you know what? That's what happens in our lives in the shop too, right?
Okay, so I got up, it did say freeze frame, so it was pulling stuff up. 50562. Okay, so it does have a DTC. Let's look at DTCs. So now it's looking, reading all the DTCs. It says no trouble code, but that was a pending code. Okay. Let's look at mode 6 data. And it always warns you, it says if all the monitors are not ready, the mode 6 data may not be accurate.
Right.
So
there's going to be mode 6 tests that have not run yet because some prerequisite has not been met.
and in case you forgot what mode 6 is, basically before a DTC there's a pending DTC. That's what we just seen.
And before a pending DTC is the test that either passed or failed.
Right, and it's multiple times. It's not a one-shot deal. In most cases, it's multiple times. So this one here says engine ECU, tells us what passed. Oh, it decodes it. It says O2 oxygen sensor, bank 1 sensor 2. And it gives us catalyst pass. These are all the last tests in
And it's saying pass, pass, pass. Obviously, if there was a failure there, it would flag it in red and say failed.
Right, and that's the big thing. Notice I'm going through this whole list. There's a lot of stuff here. Okay. Purge.
There was a failed.
Look at that.
There you go.
So the last time this did a purge, it says evap system purge monitor valve function. It failed the last time it tested out. Now, it didn't set a DTC for it. Why? Has to fail here X amount of times. What that X amount of times is whatever the engineer decided it would be.
However they programmed it.
We'll take a fictitious number.
8.
8 fail times it goes to a pending code. Fails 2 to 3 times in a pending code, depending on what the engineer, it's supposed to be 2 by OBQ ruling.
Right.
Sometimes it may be 3. Then it becomes a full-blown DTC.
And then the light comes on.
So this is good to see if your work that you did on the car, after you took it for a test drive, if the problem was fixed or not. Because when you went out to drive it, it should tell us.
Or if it didn't run a bunch of things, you know that something's hanging it up and it's not going to give you a good result until it runs those tests.
And here's another good thing. My vehicle information as far as this will tell us if the computer has the right VIN number plugged into it. And that's important. So 7820.
I got it.
Yep. That's the right number. 7382 is correct. It tells us the controller and all the information on it. Pretty neat. So let's get out of this now. And let's look at engine data. Now, one of the nice things here, it has data stream, check that, special test, maintenance test, all system DTC scan. This is a big plus.
Health check.
Health check. It's going to go through all the modules, and OTC's been using this for years. It's going to query all of these different modules and tell us if there's any problems.
Now, obviously, this is going to take a little bit because it is a somewhat older vehicle, and it takes longer on the older vehicles than the newer ones.
Well, we're 20-something% done already.
Yes, but well, still,
So-
you know, some of these cars today, they zip through,
They zip through
60
very
modules in a matter of, you know, a minute or a minute and a half.
And you heard that little beep in the background? That means it's checking the system. And it's going through, and right now it's on the transmission.
Now, and by the way, when you're doing this in a car and you see a tranny light or an ABS light or something come on the dashboard, a lot of times that's normal. That's not a problem. That's the scan tool accessing the car. It makes the light come on. There's nothing wrong there.
And now, since Pierre brought that up, another thing, if you have the scan tool plugged in and you're in ABS, be aware that ABS will not work and the light will be illuminated on the dash.
Right.
That's what most scan tools do. They
They do
throw
that.
you out of the ABS part. So here's our final report, it looks like. We're 100% done. It tells us no trouble codes. Oh, 3 DTCs somewhere in occupant classification. So let's see what that is. There was current vehicle identification number mismatch, occupant classification, and something else. So let's go to here. Oh, here, I can read this a lot easier. So it tells us what DTCs are actually in all these different controllers.
Now, this isn't a diagnostic
Current
seminar,
code.
obviously, but when you get these things, you have to temper what you're doing with what the symptoms are.
So here's where it's seeing the occupant and a couple of the other things right here. So we pull it up, it said it didn't like the J1850 data bus, may have been,
Of course,
what did it say?
yeah, it could have been an issue with the bus. Sometimes it's a voltage issue that freaks out the bus. And sometimes it's something like, you know, you have a broken wire to a sensor in the seat or something and it's flipping on and off, screwing up bus communication.
Yeah, that could have been something there. We really don't have anything. And by the way, you can print the report, you can do a lot of stuff. Let's look at data stream. So we're going to do select. We're going to take all of those PIDs there. It says it's going to take 32 seconds. It's counting down.
Now this screen is pretty readable
And
in
it's
person, but it may not be as readable on camera just because of the, you know, the screen is not made to be videoed as well as it's made to be looked at with the human eye.
So here we got baro, we got battery temperature, and you see we could, that's the right mileage on the vehicle. We can keep scrolling across. It gives you a little graph, excuse me, not grass, a graph plot.
Right, it'll plot it out.
My mouth needs to be plotted out.
That's right.
Too much yakking. Okay, and here we can see our fuel level sensors. Look at the data, a nice list of data. And notice this works just like my Android phone. I'm taking my finger and I'm swiping it rather, and it's giving me more and more information, which is pretty neat.
Now obviously if you have some kind of an intermittent issue in a vehicle, it's very nice, this graphing feature. You don't have to risk driving into a telephone pole gathering the data. You can look at it after you stop.
And of course you could select the data as well.
Right, and fewer PIDs makes a higher resolution, a faster update rate.
So there's a real big abundance of information here. Let's go out and special tests. Now special tests, this is probably going to be actuator tests. And here they have a whole bunch of stuff. It has access to VIN, so you can read or write the VIN, accessory test. Let's see if we, let's do the AC relay so it's something we could hear.
Now this is going to vary. This is not controlled so much by the scan tool.
Yeah.
It's controlled by, should I walk over there?
I'm
here?
gonna walk over.
Okay. It's controlled by the programming of the vehicle. If it's not in the car, obviously the scan tool can't do it. Okay, I don't know if you can hear that?
Okay, we'll be quiet for a second. So what it did, it goes on for a while and then it times out. And that's an important thing, that it does time out as well. So we have a whole bunch of bidirectional controls that we can do here. You can do specific tests, evap tests, pretty nice function here. And again, you see how quick the screen moves. It does a bunch of stuff. You can save information to a card that's right up top. And you could actually put the printer in here. It gives you a nice report when you actually do something. It tells you the date in case you don't know what the date is, the temperature. We've got nice weather. You also have helpful diagnostic information. Look at this. You have direct hit. You got code assist library. You got repair tracks. So right here you can go in and see engine performance. Check engine light is on. Let's say it has a code P0139 since the transmission was changed. That's a lot of good information in there. Okay?
Now, the way this and all of these tablet-based scan tools work best is if you have a wireless network in your shop.
That's what we're on basically here.
Otherwise, you're not going to have all the internet information at your fingertips.
Now here's code assist library. So let's say we load this up and we have a P0 code. They said there's 94 of them in here for this vehicle that you can select. So let's say it's a P04 code. It starts with the number 4. So we'll take the dreaded P0420 and qualifies for the components. It tells us, you know, the bank one and stuff. It measures, it tells you what it does. Code set and criteria. Very important to understand this, code set and criteria. This is the information needed for when that code actually sets. So now this is
It is what the computer uses to decide whether that's a failure or a pass.
And look at that. It loaded a whole bunch of information up. Things like the engine has to be warm, the manifold pressure, yada, yada, yada. Then we also have code assist. Top reported fixes for this. Okay? And it'll tell you an oxygen sensor or replace the cat. It also gives us location. Let's say the location of the oxygen sensor, lower left-hand side of the engine. Pretty neat stuff here.
It never says in the worst possible space that you can't reach.
Let's look at the diagram. There's the diagram. I don't know if you can see that there, but look at this.
And that actually gives you the pins and the wires and everything.
Let's look at a waveform. So they built a whole bunch of good information right into this tool. And there's the oxygen sensor waveform. TSBs, technical service bulletins. Let's take one here on engine control, module initiation after replacement. Okay, so there's a TSB on it. And connectors. Let's see what the connector looks like. So when you go to back probe it,
you know you're in the right spot.
And there it is.
There's the connector. And on the previous 2-3 screens back, they gave you the wire colors.
Yeah.
You got it all.
Pretty neat. Okay. Let's get out of there. And notice it really moves quick. You got a video library. Okay. So this goes out to the OTC website, and I don't know, just pick one of these here. So in case you have a brain fart, they put a lot of these little videos up there, and we're on a wireless network here.
So it'll take a minute to, there you go.
And there is Ed Lipscomb, this gentleman right here. Ed is a real good guy, and he's the project manager for this tool, and he's interviewing someone there. You can't hear the sound, but that's pretty neat, and he's walking through there. So you can look at a whole bunch of this neat stuff that is on this tool. And here's a whole, they got a whole video library here.
How to, or how something's supposed to work, you know, all of that stuff to either inform you or refresh your memory on how stuff works. How to test it.
How to test different things, bath senses, you know, a whole bunch of stuff. A very in-depth library here of videos. And then you have symptoms, drive cycle, so you don't know the drive cycle. Now, isn't this nice? If you wanted to do the EVAP, it's going to tell us what to do. And look how fast this thing is operating, full drive cycle. Tells you that. And I go back and I do PCM pins. So here's all the pin numbers. C13 is the vehicle wheel speed sensor. That's pretty neat.
Now,
Okay.
obviously, when you're doing this, you'd want a wiring diagram as well, so you know the wire color, but at least you know where it is.
Transmission pan ID. What tranny you have in there? Our buddy Wayne Colonna would like this. That's right up his alley. Transmissions, ATSG, we'll give him a call out there. Tune-up specs. Look at this. Injectors, what the starter motor should be. The alternator, timing, ignition coil, spark plug, fuel pressure. And notice how fast I'm going. The fire in order. Compression. This is faster sometimes than going to your information system.
Yeah, this is pretty quick.
There's a lot of power in this tool. People don't usually use it because, you know what? They only use it
To check codes.
to check codes. They need to do more.
Yes.
Get into that data list. Get into all this good information
If you bought the tool, use it all.
that's in here.
Powerful.
And by the way, I have this set to automatic updates, so it just downloads it. Let's look at key programming. So it'll explain to you how to do key programming. There's the key fob. And there's the information on programming the key. Very, very good and powerful information. Tells you this car can have up to 4 remotes only. Battery disconnect. Now right here it'll tell you before disconnecting the battery. Now it's not that important on this car, but what do we have on a lot of cars, Pierre, that you worked with for years?
They have, you have to do what I call a software reset. If you disconnect the battery, they have a lot of capacitors, and there's a lot of memory that gets corrupted if you just disconnect the battery without either draining it back down to zero or having some kind of a power supply on it to keep it alive when you disconnect the battery.
And not only that, Pierre, but how about when you put a battery in a car and you have to, you have to code it.
The new cars have to be registered.
Right.
They have to be coded in. You have to tell the car that it has a new battery, or it'll overcharge it. It'll cook it.
So this thing would basically tell you, if we were on that type of car, that if you would change it a lead acid to a glass mat or a gel, you would have to program it. And that also includes registration in it.
Right.
If you're simply swapping a battery out on new cars, and by the way, this is no longer just for European cars. Ford, GM, and everyone else is starting to utilize it.
And you have to be careful about capacities. They ask you, it's not just whether it's an AGM or a lead, a regular lead acid battery. It's what is the amp hour or the cold cranking amp rating of that battery.
That is correct.
Got to be the same battery that you're coding in.
So this is one super quick tool, very fast. You can see you can do software information. You can do software updates. It'll look out for it. Language, direct hit. So I have my Adelphi built right into here. And Adelphi, as you know, is a very, very helpful tool. Okay? Doesn't mean you should replace a part, but what they do is give you the test of how to check it and take it from there. Very good stuff here. And let's see, maintenance test. Let's take a look at that. So maintenance test, let's see, TPMS registration. Now this is a big problem, right? TPMS, tire pressure monitoring system. This could drive you crazy.
And you can't just rotate tires on most cars today. You're going to have a problem with TPMS if you don't tell the car that you rotated the tires and the sensors are now in the new spots.
Now if it doesn't come up with anything, so it says right here, okay, would you like to use a TPR? That means a tire pressure registry thing. And yes, no, always. Well, I'm not going to do that, I'm going to back out, but OTC also sells a tire pressure monitoring tool that could also speak to this. We don't have that here, but that's something you can look online. So, in closing, this tool is a super powerful tool. It's quick and easy, and we did all the tests. We used the scan tool on a Jeep tonight. If you have any questions, remember you can always get in touch with us at tstseminars.org. All you got to do is email us at info@tstseminars.org, and we'll get back to you. Thanks for watching. Good evening, I'm G. Truglia, the president of TST.
And I'm Pierre Respaut, the vice president of TST.
And tonight what we're doing, we're using the launch scan tool on a 2004 Jeep Liberty and go through some of its functions. So we have this up on the screen. We're going to hit diagnose. You can see all the neat stuff they have here. You've got an oscilloscope module and so on. You got web browsing,
And everything up here is exactly the way it is on the screen on the scan tool.
and they got a great one-click update. The software, it works great. So we're going to do this via the Bluetooth.
Now this unit has a Bluetooth unit that plugs into the car, so you don't need a wire to the car. But you do have to remember to take that unit out of the car when you return it to the customer.
We're going to select the vehicle. This is a Chrysler because we're in American. And we're going to go, this is the latest version. You can stack a couple of versions, which is always a good idea. And I like that they show you the different versions, because sometimes, you know, with any scan tool, someone puts a new update in
And some feature either gets lost or doesn't work as well in the new one.
we remember the old days of an old scan tool.
Oh yes, and you'd lose features when you gained new features. It was very irritating.
Now, there was an update done to it not long ago, so you can see here, upgrading will take about 2 minutes. So that means Pierre and I have to yak for
That's
2
correct.
minutes.
So there's a couple of things I'm going to mention. We always try to mention this on any of these scan tool webcasts. Number one, we are not reading a book first, and just like you in a shop, we pick it up and it's got to work for us. It's got to be intuitive. Number two, power supply on the car. Always have to have and I'm not talking about a battery charger that might overcook it. Something that will maintain a specific voltage for scanning, for coding, and for programming.
And if you've been watching us for years with our 150 plus videos on YouTube, you would know that we did experience at one time, we figured it was a brand new car we had in, and we were only doing a short webcast of about 40 minutes.
So we got lazy.
We got lazy. We didn't put the maintainer on, and you know what happened? The battery went dead.
Yeah.
Now, you may have lights on a car, which doesn't mean much nowadays. It's not enough to start it up.
Right.
So we're using the associated smart and telematic Pro Series charger that does one good job on not only being a battery charger, but we're on the maintain mode. So when you hear that little buzzing noise in the background, that is our battery maintainer.
And that's maintaining not only the voltage, but within very narrow limits with no AC floating on it. It's a very clean signal.
Yes, in fact, this is actually good to reprogram a vehicle with. If I wanted to program this Jeep, I can do it with this particular charger. And you can do most cars, but of course when you get into some higher end cars, some newer BMWs, excuse me, you're up to 90 amps now.
And within really, really crazy tight tolerances.
So we're almost done, 95% done. And then we will be into the newer software.
There we go.
And there you go. Did not turn power
Yeah,
on?
but it's just rebooting itself, so to speak.
So there it goes. And if I would have picked the older one, I wouldn't have had to go through this, but we might as well do it. So it's doing its thing.
And we wanted to show you the newest software anyway.
And look, they even have the oil reset in it. So if I wanted to do oil reset since I'm here, let's just see what it says. We could go down of the whole list of vehicles here. Hard to say.
Yep. Yeah, that's one of the issues with trying to do this in front of a camera on a webcast. These things are made to be looked at in front of your face, not you know, like this on a support for a keyboard.
Okay, so here's the Liberty, and it's going to tell me you know, how to do this. Now, the old ones, I'll just use this as an example here. It'll basically tell you how to do the reset. That's good information to have, and of course they make a little tool launch that does basically the same thing. And of course you see I hit the button too quick, it's very quick. I'm going to do automatic search. So I went back to the scan tool screen for Chrysler, automatic search.
Now this is a good thing to do on any car that comes in, because you never know what's lurking and you don't want it to bite you later. It's always good to find it, document it, and tell the customer about it, not have them drive away and have the light come on and then they try to blame you for the problem.
So this is ID in the vehicle, it's going through its different protocol, and it'll come up and tell us what's wrong. Okay, so here's all the different modules it has on board. Let's look at the powertrain control module. And it's going to do a scan of the new generation computer. That's NGC for this. That's what that means.
Now the speed of this scan is more reliant on how fast the car is than on the scan.
Right, that's keyword protocol. And it's looking at different communications. So there, it ID'd it for us. It gave us, this is important. Super important when you're programming a car, you want to know that PCM number.
Right.
Very, very
So you don't put the wrong program in it.
Yeah.
Or burn it up completely.
Okay, so we can do read trouble codes. There's no codes. We could do ECU information. It gave us that information we just looked at. We could see data stream. Now if you do, this page is 5 pages of data.
You basically select what you want to look at.
So you can go like this and check which ones I want, hit OK.
Okay, and then you get that data.
And there's the data. I could go, I could record it, I can plot it, if I want to put graphs on it.
And that's really handy for intermittent things, isn't it? You can drive the car without driving into a telephone pole while you're getting the data.
Yeah, that telephone pole seems to go right in your
It jumps right in front of you.
Let's look at actuator test. So 5 pages of info. Auto shutdown relay. Well, this one will click. Let's see if we can hear it.
So that's telling you that you have good communications with the car, and it's also telling you that the ASD relay is actually clicking. It doesn't necessarily say current's going through it.
Exactly, but at least it's functioning.
It's functioning. It's being activated.
1 of 4 pages, Pierre, right there.
Yeah, a lot of stuff. A lot of things you can activate.
Look at all the stuff you can do. Now, not everything like manifold tune valve. It's not on this car. That's like inductive type of air type stuff. Not here.
Right.
But a lot of the stuff here we can do if it was.
It's got a wastegate solenoid, and this vehicle doesn't have a turbo. So, but you know, it would be there if you needed it, if you had it in your car.
The O2 heater. If you wanted to check the heater out, this is good. Put an amp clamp around it as you hit this test, and guess what? We can see if it's working or not. We can get out of this, and we can go to ABS brakes. Let's see what it has in ABS. Let's read trouble codes.
Bus system communication.
Okay.
Whatever that means.
No code, but something it didn't like on the bus. Let's clear that. Let's see if it comes back.
Now sometimes, in some vehicles, you can clear a code like that and it doesn't really clear until you turn the key off for 10 seconds, a half a minute, whatever that.
Cleared that right out.
So it worked in this case, but I'm just mentioning that if it doesn't clear, turn the key off, drink a quarter of your cup of coffee or whatever, and then go back, turn the key on, and it'll, if it's gone, that's all it was. It needed to turn off to reset that code.
I'm in the body control module. Let's see what actuator test they have here.
There's quite a few of them.
They probably got, let's try the wiper.
Yeah, they are.
They're working.
Yep.
I'll do the horn for you because it's a little hard for you to hear the wiper.
And we need something to wake us up anyway.
Oh yeah.
There you go, horn relay.
Right there, right in front of my face. I hear the relay clicking, but I don't hear
The horn?
any horn. Now maybe that's just a relay. Maybe it doesn't blow.
It doesn't activate the horn. It's strange, you'd think it would just automatically.
Let's try
Again.
it again.
And this is what happens on live webcasts. We always have something that, there we go, nothing.
Didn't work.
Okay,
But it doesn't seem to work.
the horn works, right?
Oh, don't know. Should.
Maybe I should do a little quick test here, huh? Yeah, the horn itself works.
Let's try a different actuator test. Let's see if the high beam goes up.
Yeah, Doreen, maybe you pan and show the lights on the car. There they are. And they're flashing.
So, you know, if you see something like this, it's a good idea sometimes to, you know, try it on another vehicle, see if it works, but write it down to know it doesn't work, and give the information to the company.
Right.
Because a lot of times they will fix those things. They don't know about it.
They don't know it's a problem in the software and they'll fix it in the next update.
So this is a very capable tool with a lot of information in it. And when we talk about information, you actually there was that short test.
Right?
We could go in.
They call it a short test, but it's really not short, is it? Usually takes a while. And that has nothing to do with the scan tool, like I said before. It has to do with the speed of the vehicle.
So it's a pretty damn good, capable tool that does a lot of information. Let's see if we can get out. So here's a whole bunch of stuff that comes up if we want to go to
Now this is
data.
this is the web. So obviously, if you're on a wireless network in your shop, you can go to all data. You can go to auto data. You can Google stuff. You can go on YouTube. You can do whatever, get information. Go to your wiring diagrams, whatever, and not have to leave the service bay.
There's Google. There's our buddies at IATN, Adelphi.
Basically anything you would load in a regular PC,
Mitchell on Demand.
okay, within limits, but things you'd want in your service bay that you'd have on a regular PC, you can have now in the palm of your hand.
So a lot of stuff, and you can put your favorites in there, which is pretty neat.
Yeah.
So the launch scan tool.
And notice TST seminars is at the top of that list.
Look at that.
Yeah. Wow. What a
Wow, and I
surprise.
didn't put that in there.
There you go.
So let's see. Let's see it open up. Maybe you'll see what's coming up.
There you go. There's the website. Little plug for us.
And there we have a live seminar coming up on May the 2nd in New Jersey. So, and he'll be talking about a lot of scan tools. Guest speaker will be John and Noah. So we'd like to thank you for watching this. And if you have any comments, you can contact us at tstseminars.org. And we will be more than glad to get back to you. We do appreciate you watching our webcast up on YouTube or even live, and we always welcome your feedback. What do you want to see us do?
And what problems, we do this in our seminars, what problems do you have that you're having trouble with? It's always good to have somebody to brainstorm with.
That's true. More heads better than one. Thank you for watching. Have a good night.
Yep, thank you.